All right, everybody, it's the Dave Knows Wrestling podcast, and today I am joined by my very special guests. We have Luke Jackson, who is a former high school wrestling coach, and then we have John Furman, who is also a former high school wrestler, but also a professional wrestling fan. And you have me, and I'm a self-admitted, I'm not really much of an expert when it comes to amateur wrestling. But first question I have to ask for you, Luke, and actually both of you guys. So when it comes to the term amateur wrestling, is that the correct nomenclature? Is that the correct term to use?
I would say it is. You don't get paid for it.
Okay.
So when you're in high school, obviously, when you're in college, you don't get paid for it. So you're not technically a professional. It's not a description of them. It's simply an adjective. Because they can't be called professionals.
I got it. So okay, for you, Johnny, what do you think?
I personally agree. I mean, think about it. If you're not getting paid for it, how can you be a professional?
Okay, but now a lot of people out there are kind of concerned with the idea that when it comes to professional wrestling, it does make it sound a little bad when you refer to amateur wrestling, seeing the fact that that's the legitimate sport. Now, I don't take any issues with the term fake, but once again, I figure we get this out of the air, since I know some people don't like the term fake for pro wrestling, and other people don't like the term amateur for collegiate style wrestling or amateur wrestling. Right. But okay, so you guys you guys are not offended by that, so that's a good start. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is, now I'm curious to know, when it comes to, let's say, are you a big Kurt Angle fan, guys?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're familiar, Luke. You're familiar with him in
his
the
Olympic and right.
And the first thing I want to discuss about this is, when it looks to his physical form, when it comes to the actual natures of, amateur Olympic wrestling, are there different kinds of workout plans? Are there different kinds of regimens that you had to change from back, when he was in the Olympics versus now when he's in the WWE? Even though he's, semi-retired right now, but more in his later professional career.
I would, the workouts themselves are probably different. You know what? They're probably pretty similar. Just time spent in the weight room and time spent practicing moves. I mean, the moves themselves are different, but I would say they're probably not that far apart.
Gotcha. And what would you say, Johnny?
I would think the only thing that would be really different is, for amateur wrestling, you're doing a lot of weight cut. Professional wrestling, I don't see them doing a weight cut. It's more along the lines of physical conditioning, cardio, and it's a lot of the same things, because in amateur wrestling, you can get gassed in 30 seconds and not even know it.
Yeah. So cardio is big for amateur wrestling.
That's true. That's true.
Hands down.
Now, you can see that for certain wrestlers, Baron Corbin, it's not really as big of a deal, I would say, in the pro circuit. It should be, but I think we can admit that it's not always. All right, so you would say cardio. So cardio is a big thing. Would you say that's the biggest thing that people neglect when it comes to amateur wrestling, that they don't really work on their cardio as much as they should? They're too busy being concerned about strength?
No.
No?
No way, shape, or form, because
learning here.
From amateur wrestling, I've done a bunch of different sports in my life. Hands down, no sport has worked me harder than that. I was never in as much physical.
Right.
I've never been as tired in my life from anything else before. And I'll tell you one thing: in my seasons of wrestling, I was never in better shape in my life.
Really?
Hands down.
Oh
really?
Yeah.
Even over baseball.
Oh yeah.
Because you also play baseball, if I
of course.
remember correctly. All right, so wrestling, that I did not realize. Okay, so on top of that, all right, what would you say is the next fundamental thing that people need to work on after cardio?
In amateur?
Yes.
I would say that it's just the repetition of the moves, really. Just
technique.
Yeah, getting the technique down.
It's a lot of drilling. It's a lot of repetition just to remember, because you want it to be second nature.
Right.
Because the difference between it being a scripted match and being a traditional amateur style match, when you're in an amateur match, you don't know what the other person's going to do. And I'm not trying to play off of I'm not trying to follow you. I'm trying to lead. And I want to be the one I want my head to be out a step behind me. I want my body to do the motion. I want to go through everything at my speed, at my rate beforehand. Because if I let you dictate, then I'm losing.
But on the same rationale, while I understand that that's 100% correct, what's interesting for me is the idea that if repetition is key, and that's a skill you learn at an amateur level, that has to translate into pro. So when you're actually going through, similar choreographed motions, so that repetition seems like something that's also part of amateur wrestling that I didn't realize translates into pro.
Oh yeah.
Right.
The amount of practice work that you put in, the amount of time you put in, if you want to really hone your craft, you got to buckle down and you got to do it. You
Okay,
know?
so
Yeah.
so Luke, give me an idea. What is when you like? Let's say it's someone's freshman year. They're first coming. Let's say you get Johnny here, and it's his first day trying out for the wrestling team. He made the cut. Well, actually, when it comes to making the cut, what do you look for? What do you look for as a coach?
Somebody with desire, like
That's
just
it.
just I mean that would be my first attribute to just look, because if you don't, wrestling's a sport where, especially at the high school and college level, like if you don't really have the desire to be successful in it, you are never ever going to be successful in it. And I was not a great I wrestled in high school too, and I was not a great high school wrestler, but I had a lot of I wanted to be, and I saw people who had a lot more talent than I did go just a little bit further than I did personally, just because they just didn't have the I don't know, desire to be great, which they could have been. So the first thing I look for is somebody who comes to practice every day and comes a little early, stays a little later, wants to put the time in, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it shows up early.
So-
Interesting concept, right, Johnny? Anyway, sorry. Yeah, you found out about that on the DVD commentary, which there won't be. So anyway, all right. So what kind of styles did you guys practice? Now that I want to know, because I know there's plenty of amateur styles out there. So, and there's a good chance you guys might have done multiples. But Johnny, we'll start with you. So what kind did you do?
See, now I'm going to premise this with a couple of things. When I was in high school, I had never wrestled prior. I didn't wrestle since. It was a need-based thing to keep me in shape for other things. So when I started, it wasn't because of a desire. I developed a desire through the process because I was not good at it.
Yeah.
And I didn't like not being good at things, so I worked at it. Now, I wasn't familiar with a lot of styles. I learned a lot of different techniques, hand placement, timing, things of that nature, and the ability to try and read and react. Because the most important thing is reacting if your opponent's going to do something.
Right.
Like if they're going to drop, they're going to go for a double. You have to sprawl. If you don't, you're done. Match is over. As soon as you're on your back, you can't recover.
Okay.
There's little certain things. It's more techniques than I would say styles.
Okay, so you didn't really. So you just really had. You mastered techniques, but you didn't really have a specific style that you went out for.
No way
Right.
I had a style.
And
Yeah,
Luke,
I'll say this: like high school and college, it's they really call it a folk style because it's kind of a mix between freestyle and Greco-Roman, which are
Really?
like the Olympic,
Right.
forms of wrestling. Let's say. So me and Johnny only being high school wrestlers, like folk style was the only. At least for me, I don't know if you
I'm
went into
assuming it's the
freestyle at
same
all.
thing,
Yeah, I did not do any kind of freestyle or Greco-Roman. I coached a couple of kids who did some freestyle events in like summer programs and that kind of thing. So I've become a little bit more familiar with that. And but that's, I mean, when just focusing on high school, it's kind of a combination of the two Olympic styles, and they just call it folk style.
Oh, okay, okay. So, all right. Now, speaking of folk style, and you were talking about techniques, and this is especially for you, Johnny. When it comes to techniques and moves or maneuvers, what specifically have you seen that you've done, or you've at least mastered or drilled a lot, that you actually see in the pros? What moves are there that actually are in both?
Oh, see, this is what I was hoping for. This was the question.
I gotta lead up to it, man. I gotta lead up to it. I gotta lead up to it.
Why can't you people understand that kind of wrestling isn't real?
Continue.
Well, like I said, it's a lot of hand placement, a lot of transitions, and you feel like you watch a Kurt Angle, you watch a Brock Lesnar, you watch a Dolph Ziggler even, you watch those guys with that amateur background. You'll see them do things second nature that other people will slow down and have to take a step. If you see someone drop to a knee and go for a double, that's not probably supposed to be part of a standard professional wrestling match, but it's just so natural. Like you'll watch Kurt Angle, and there's this thing that we call in wrestling hand fighting, where you're trying to grapple for hand control, wrist control, and he still does that in his matches. And it's all those years of amateur, collegiate, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
He just has that ingrained in his head that you can't pull back from it.
All right, I want to get back to that in a second. But first, Luke, your response to that? Tell me.
Yeah, it's funny because the first thing that I think of, like so getting back to a question that you kind of asked before,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
first thing that we coach in in high school or really on the recreation level too is elbows in. Like you're in folk style wrestling, your position A should be kind of feet square and elbows in.
All right.
And it's weird because the first thing you see on a professional level is the guys coming in and their arms are all the way up here and all over the place and blah, blah, blah. And so it's funny how it starts out so different, but then Jimmy was saying, Johnny was saying, I knew it wasn't Jimmy. You know, when I said it and I knew it wasn't Jimmy.
You know what? You know what? In the end,
It doesn't matter what you think!
see, so it's okay.
So what Johnny was saying was the same thing, right? Because you see them hand fight, and their hands end up in the same positions. Like there's an under and an over in high school, and you see like that's position A on at. And I don't watch much professional wrestling, but what I remember from watching is like Hulk Hogan and Andre like right in an under overlock. With each other. So
now going back to the thing that Johnny was saying earlier, so when it comes to Kurt Angle, like you guys,
I apologize for calling Jimmy.
It's
I really
okay.
do that. I really do.
Yeah, yet again, like I said, but so like you were saying earlier, when you see that kind of movement from Kurt Angle, like the hand thing that you guys were talking about, so like you said, you used to watch it. Do you want to see that in the pro level, or do you want to see them act more like amateur wrestling, or do you think it doesn't really matter? The show must go on, because you're also more, you are also understand the theatrics of things too,
right.
As being a broadcaster. So, do you want it to look more like the spectacle of, WWE pro wrestling, or would you rather it be more, what it's supposed to be like in the amateur level?
I don't have any problem with how pro wrestling, for lack of a better term, orchestrates the sport of it.
But would you prefer, like, if you were in charge,
Right.
what would you do? Continue,
No, I would continue it. I would continue it the same way. And
really?
it's weird to say, but like they've tried a bunch of different ways to kind of quote unquote sell amateur wrestling
Nice.
to the public, and it's not a boring sport to like me. Or Johnny, or the guys who go through, but like to the general public, to sit there and watch a 7-minute match and for it to be like 3-2, and at the highest level, like it is a little bit more defensive than maybe it should be. College is taking some moves to make it a little bit more offensive, giving them a little bit more space, allowing the continuation of wrestling a little bit more. But there's no way for the for like the WWE to encompass the skill, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
It's a bad word, but
No,
the skill of the amateur wrestlers
I pull no punches. I'm totally down with that.
versus the theatrics of selling tickets.
I will say, if the Olympic guys came out with full-blown WWE entrances, I probably would. That would at least get me watching for at least 5 minutes.
And you know what's funny?
What's that?
The college, the NCAA finals, if you watch the individual finals now, they used to just walk out on the mat and wrestle each other. Now they have a raised platform.
Now we're talking.
They come out from the locker rooms in smoke. And like one guy has the red lights up on his corner, one guy has the green lights up on his corner. So they're trying to. Like college is actually doing a pretty decent job of trying to make it a little bit more of a show.
All right, well, now you got this. So in college, what do you win? You win like a medal or a trophy? What is it?
I think they give you a trophy. I'm sure I'm sure they give you a medal, but I know they give you a trophy.
In high school, what do you guys give out?
Medals.
See,
Individually.
I want championship title belts. That's what I want. And yes, Vince McMahon, it is a belt. I can call it a belt or a strap. Anyway, yeah, I want championship belts. That's what I want. Okay, so Johnny, where are you at on this situation? How do you want the pro level handling? More like amateur, or do you want it sticking? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I kind of like the way they do it now.
Really?
They flow one or two of those guys in there, and then they start talking up their amateur background.
So you want like one or two, but you don't want the whole thing.
These guys dominate the landscape, because then it's like Luke said, it's kind of lose a little of its luster, because it's not going to have that show feel to it, even if with all the elements they can add to it. But think about it, like if you have one or two guys who you can on your roster who in a real, if you had to go, these guys can go. That's all you need.
Yeah.
You don't need 3 or 4 guys who were in the Olympics. I mean, like look at the Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik is a great example
of
the guy transitioning from one end to the other. Kurt Angle's another example.
Okay.
They were Olympic medalists. You
Okay,
know?
I thought you were going somewhere else with that, but yeah, okay, I see your
No,
point.
the perfect example. You only need one or two of those guys on the roster. Nobody during the Sheik's time frame could have touched him.
Whoa,
Nobody
whoa,
during
whoa, whoa,
Angle's-
whoa, 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 whoa.
Just
Okay,
saying.
okay, no, okay, hold on. Now, I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm going to take the Iron Sheik's side on this, but I think and I think he had him on weight, but if it was prime versus prime, amateur versus amateur, you don't think Bob Backlund has a chance against the Sheik in this one?
Not with the Sheik's power.
Yeah, like I said, he has the size advantage, I'll give you that, but Bob Backlund wasn't no slouch.
But
you
it's
know?
it's not even just a size advantage thing.
No,
It's not
I know
even
it's
just
not.
a strength advantage. It's a leverage thing. And Backlund was, I guess, for lack of a better term, squirmy. You know, like the guy could get out. Like he could move. He
He's
was
a
kind
wriggler,
of
yeah.
greasy. You know, like that was the term we used. Like if you could get out, you got out. And that was what I saw Backlund being. I saw Sheik being the guy who put you down.
Well, there you go. Now, there's a good gimmick I wouldn't mind. The idea, there's a guy out there who's really not that great. It's just you can't lock anything in on him. Where's that gimmick?
That's a great concept.
Thank you. You
Why
came
don't-
up with it. You
I
came
didn't.
up.
I didn't come up with
Yes,
it. You
did.
came up with it. You got to pitch it.
I'm giving you credit. Yeah, there's a guy who's not like the biggest dude in the world, and he just wriggles out of everything. That's just his gimmick. I mean, why not? Why not try that? See, but
Yeah.
I am surprised that both of you are more leaning towards the side of the idea that you want more. You know, you want amateur to kind of almost match the theatrics of the pro level just to get more money in and more seats, you know. And you want, on the other hand, you want more of the pros to just kind of stay just being the, you know, the cartoon nonsense that it is.
I will say this. I mean, I wouldn't mind if they had like a lightweight type of division that focused maybe a little bit more on the let's say technique
Right.
or the amateur style of wrestling.
See, now
Because it's weird. Like you think of all the guys who have translated into it, and they're all heavyweights. I mean, Angle, like I don't know what weight he won a college title at. I would have to look it up. Or even if he did,
I think it was 215.
Yeah.
So
he was
heavy.
215.
He's not that much heavier.
was a heavyweight. I know.
Yeah, well,
Minnesota.
yeah,
and he was
yeah,
right. Exactly.
he was
exactly.
born a
Like all
heavyweight.
those
He's a
guys.
mountain.
Yeah.
Man's a pure mountain.
all those guys were all started as heavyweights. Like you know, and to kind of further the point on the problem translating amateur to professional is that a lot of these guys are I mean it's 126, 133. 141,
No
140. Like there's 5 weight classes under 150, and those for seniors in college.
Also,
23, 24-year-olds who really aren't going to get that much
Right.
bigger.
So
if they had like a lightweight division
Right.
that could focus more,
Which is exactly what I wanted for the cruiserweight division. I actually didn't want the cruiserweight division to be like it is now. I actually wanted it to just be like the tournament where they just wrestled. But so you're telling me Brock had obviously, but even more so than I realized, Brock had a very unfair advantage going into wrestling, just being a refrigerator that has arms and legs.
yeah.
Kurt Angle recently told a story
Oh, yeah?
about him and Lesnar telling him, "Dude, I outweigh you by like 85 pounds." Angle didn't care; he still wanted to go.
Oh, really?
Like that was it. But Lesnar was like, "I can't. I'm like 315 pounds. You're like 225 pounds. I just can't do
Well,
it."
I thought according to USC, he's 260.
Yeah, well,
No?
what day of the week
No.
is it? I'm just saying, like, because he'll be 285 come fight day minimum, minimum.
Okay, so, but all right, now let me also go back to something else on this. So when we were talking about moves, so what would you say is your bread and butter move, or either of your bread and butter moves? And if I'm understanding right, maybe that's not the way amateur works, but because you guys did specify it's a lot about reacting. But is there some signature hold or something like that you constantly go for? You're good at locking in.
Fireman's carry.
Okay, and for you, Luke?
I was not that much of an offensive wrestler to be
really?
I was much more defensive. So mine would be like the sprawler and front headlock.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, all right.
So-
So now, see, I know what those mean. Okay, good. So, all right. There's another gimmick I'd like to see. A guy who's just pure reactionary, pure defense, and that's how he wins. He doesn't go on the offense. He sits there patiently waiting. A more a Zen kind of approach. Where's that gimmick? That's 2 good gimmicks right now. Someone pay attention.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not just a gimmick. I mean, wrap some other story and nonsense around it. But some of that other stuff. So you were more the front headlock kind of guy,
Right,
And
yeah.
now, unfortunately, when it comes to a lot of amateur-based moves that I see in WWE nowadays, I do feel like I would love it if a lot more moves actually got taken more seriously than they are. Like I do. Now, as much as he overused it, like Brock Lesnar, for example, using the German suplex, as far as I'm concerned, Chris Benoit, or he who shall not be named, is the one who really made that, very much in style. But Brock is at least making a comeback, which is good because it is a, last I checked, guys, it is a real, actual wrestling move, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's like never gonna, it doesn't
Yeah.
happen, but
If you want to
No,
go to
yeah.
Greco-Roman, yes.
Right,
it is.
exactly. Yeah.
But Greco-Roman is more throw-based, more like off-the-ground lifts,
Yeah.
suplexes, things of that nature. Now, I love suplexes, belly to bellies, belly to backs, side suplex, whatever it may be.
yes, you do.
I hate Brock Lesnar's German suplex.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I'm a Chris Benoit guy. Kurt
Absolutely
Angle.
hate it.
Kurt Angle had a great German suplex.
Chris Benoit did the best one I've ever seen.
Of course. Oh no, no
Hands
doubt about
down.
that. I'm not arguing. And yeah, I agree. I agree that Brock, like I said, overuses it, and I will back you up that he does it poorly.
Yeah, but who's going to tell Brock Lesnar no? That's all I have to say about that. Because in the ring, out of the ring, I'm not messing with that man.
Sable.
No,
Sable will tell him no. That's my guess.
I don't know about that.
Sable's his wife.
I know.
Oh.
I
Oh.
still don't know about that.
Oh, all right. Well,
I don't think Brock listens to anybody. Brock listens to Brock, and that's about it.
all right. So okay. So now let's go back to the fireman's carry idea. So the fireman's carry, it's your signature thing or something you do well. Why? Tell me what you like about it.
Okay, honestly,
Uh-huh.
because I had watched professional wrestling before I had done any amateur wrestling.
Ah.
And that was the first thing I saw that I had seen in professional wrestling.
Huh.
And one of my friends who I didn't go to high school with, but I was very close with, we would drill and stuff at home and do little different things. And that was what he was really good at. So he showed me how to do the fireman's carry. And that was the one thing that I could honestly say I thought I had a good grip on by the time I was done wrestling.
All right, so hit me. Tell me what's the deal with what's the hallmark of really carrying on a great fireman's carry? What advice do you have?
Very simple. You have to have an overhook and shoot the leg. That's it. Like if you have the tight overhook and you can get yourself down, your money. All you have to do is be able to drop that knee fast, and the guy's going to be on his back before he knows it.
So it's speed more than strength, like
Well,
speed and leverage.
That's
is
a
what
lot
you're
of
looking for.
sports is leverage and speed. It's less power than you think. Like a baseball bat doesn't need to come through the zone with so much power. It just needs to come through speed. And the same thing in wrestling. If I
But
can
now-
shoot,
Yeah.
I hear you. Oh, believe me, I completely subscribe to that idea. But as you know, I'm sure, as I know you know, Johnny, there are plenty of fans out there that have a real serious grudge against speed and leverage, and they really just need a guy to be big, because if the guy isn't huge, they don't believe it. So where do you guys, Luke? Where do you stand on that issue for pro wrestling? Let's say if you were watching it, do you,
Needing somebody to be
yeah. Steroided up, or I'm sorry,
Right.
just big wellness policy. Yeah. All right. I'm just
Right.
saying big. Do you in the pro level? Since you were saying that you want the theatrics, do you want that guy to be that large, or
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
but you're also talking to two different types of people here.
I'm sure.
We're looking at it as more than just a fan. Like
yes.
personally, right now, the baddest man on the planet is a 125-pounder named Demetrius Johnson. He's the man can't be beaten. Pound for pound, is the best fighter in the world, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that guy's 125 pounds. But it's tough. Like you don't have to be huge to be viewed as a threat in my world.
True, but now let's say for the money-making audiences as a whole, since Luke did bring that up. So, do you
Right.
think that the people can really get behind a lean, trim, fast kind of guy, or do you think they need that big
Finn Balor. Finn Balor is the quintessential. He will answer that question. If the fans get behind him, then yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, but we don't know that yet. So how about for right now?
Do I think if the story is told properly, I think they can get behind anybody.
I mean, because
Yeah,
don't
I
get
would
me
say so.
yeah, because don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Finn Balor guy, and I do like the slimmer dudes. And if you watch also the Monday Night Wrong, Derek, while he plays a character who has an obsession with big guys, I want everyone to know he laughed when I sent him the script because he said he's not like that at all in real life. So he just found it funny. So just gonna get that right. And he also came up with the title of the show, Monday Night Wrong. I've been meaning to get that out there for a while. Okay, so anyway, so when it comes to the gigantic sizes, a lot of people are like that. Agree with the three of us, it seems, that they don't need some guy to be hulkingly large. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do need the guy to have a little muscle mass.
Right.
Zack Sabre Jr., as much of a fan of Zack Sabre Jr. as I am, I wish he would put on a little bit of muscle.
I agree.
yeah,
I mean, like,
something.
but like here, the example I'll use here is Ricochet.
Okay.
Look at Ricochet 3 years ago. Look at him now.
Mhm.
That boy put on some muscle.
Yeah,
and
that's all I'm
he
asking
still moves like lightning.
Yeah, but then you have some other problems, though, with guys like Booker T. Before he became main event status, Booker T, who had a great lean build, he was able to do things like the Harlem Hangover. Yeah, I still call it the Harlem Hangover. I'm not changing. And he was a lot leaner. His missile drop kicks were so much better. And not that he couldn't do it when he gained size, but when he gained a lot of mass and entered that WCW main event, all of a sudden his moveset changed. He wasn't as quick. He slowed down a lot. Now, sure, Ricochet was able to make that transition. It's not as much muscle as guys like Booker T put on, but also at the same hand, that's also a freak anomaly, and I think Ricochet is a freak anomaly. I'm not sure that everybody can do that. So,
Well, nobody can. Nobody can.
So
That guy's amazing.
the question is, when do you sacrifice, size for longevity? Yeah.
It's funny. I'll say this: like I did watch professional wrestling like when I was involved in high school wrestling, like in the '90s and that kind of time frame. And like
Right.
I don't remember like Shawn Michaels being overly big. Like I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm whatever.
He wasn't. No, he absolutely
But like,
wasn't.
Don't
start, Johnny. I swear this is going to go down a bad path. This is going to go on to be an hour-long show.
Bret Hart. Like I don't remember him. Like I don't remember.
There you go.
And like
There you
like
go.
like Mick Foley. Like Mick Foley was not a
Oh, but he's a big dude.
steroided
But he's a
out,
big dude.
guy,
no, he's not.
and people got behind him pretty big. Now he was, he'd also, you can't have everybody throwing themselves into thumbtacked
Sure. To prove their toughness.
boards, but
Yeah. Oh, no, I know what you mean. But real quick, because of the little smirk that I don't know if people know that Johnny's doing right now, I just have this.
You just made the list!
Okay, now that's all you get for that. Now moving on. So when it comes to, you're right. So, yeah, but now I hear you that Mick Foley did not have, a great physique, and, he was so immensely popular. But when you look at the biggest names
Right.
out there,
Right.
Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Stone
Exactly.
Cold, you can't argue that there is something that they have in common.
Right.
Now the question,
Undertaker.
Right. Now is the question, is it just because they were presented the right way, or are the people as a whole really just not able to get behind a guy who would actually do really well in amateur wrestling? Because I'm just going to go out on a limb and assume that, well, The Rock might have been good at football and whatnot. I'm just going to assume he probably wouldn't be the best amateur wrestler if you stuck him, in that area.
yeah.
Or am I
agree
wrong?
with
Am I
that.
wrong?
I would agree,
Yeah.
but I have one counterpoint
Yes.
to that.
What's that?
Daniel Bryan,
Yeah.
CM Punk.
Yeah, but
They both got extremely over, never being extremely big.
No, but financially the numbers aren't there to back it up.
But you could also assume that putting them in an amateur wrestling match, you might get some results where they look like their ring work ability dictates that they did some form of amateur wrestling before
Yeah.
in their life.
Yeah, okay, all right. I
So
hear
you know what
I
I'm
hear what you're saying. However, CM Punk's UFC career says the opposite. Anyway,
Well, I'm not
Shots
gonna take
fired.
I'm not going to take a shot like that.
I
that's a
love
Yeah,
little-
CM Punk.
that's-
CM Punk, you were the reason I watched wrestling. Okay, so I came back to because I was as done could be. I was so bored with the thing. All right, so I just it was a cheap shot. I had to take. I'm sorry. Okay, I had to. All right, I apologize right now. Anyway, so we're gonna have to start wrapping things up. So real quick, the last thing I want to address real fast is, if out of all the wrestlers you guys know of, is there someone that you think, and you said Daniel Bryan, maybe that's your answer, an amateur wrestling guy who you think stands a really good chance against a bigger guy that most people wouldn't realize, or somebody you're a big fan of in the amateur world that is also in pros?
Okay, so it's an amateur wrestler
That you're a fan
now.
of, or you think could actually do a lot more work if wrestling was real than most people give him credit for? Any name like that you got?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah, John.
I got two answers here.
Go for it.
I'm gonna go with Ziggler first because he's the winningest wrestler in Kent State history, which
No
is
kidding.
pretty good. And
That ain't bad.
I'm gonna go with Nakamura just for the sheer fact that I don't know what the guy has in the bag, and I kind of want to see it.
Nice. Okay, and how about for you, Luke? You got anything?
Okay, so are we talking professional?
Yeah, some professional wrestler with an amateur background that you think actually doesn't get nearly enough credit.
Oh, okay, yeah, I
anything.
don't.
Or, even if it's somebody we've talked about, Brock, Kurt, who you like?
I'll say this: there's a guy now, who's a heavyweight at Ohio State, or he just graduated as a junior. His name is Kyle Snyder, and he's going to go on to a little bit of Olympic success, or he just had and won a world championship. He's a heavyweight wrestler in college now. Like, he could be the next Kurt Angle,
right,
whoever
I
else. So
like
he
that.
I mean,
Scouting.
he is a heavyweight. He is, has a very, very Kurt Angle-like background, so he could transition in
like
3 or 4, or 5
right.
years. He could be.
I hope he's more like Kurt Angle and less like Rulon Gold, because that was a disappointment. I really hope that happens.
That's true.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that's been the show. Luke Jackson, tell everybody once again where they can find you.
It's the shorthanded breakaway podcast on 10x10 radio.
And Johnny Furman, where can everybody find you?
You can find me down at Big Jim's Pizzeria in New Milford, New Jersey.
All right, I'm your host, David Lee. This has been the Dave Knows Wrestling Podcast. Thank you so much for listening.